So welcome everybody to our editing and animation panel. We're super excited about this one. This is our first one panel on editing, so I think it's going to be really exciting. And it's great to meet everyone. Thank you all for being a part of this panel. Yeah. So I'm going to do our introductions first. Let's start with Pam Ziegenhagen.
Yay.
Did I do that right?
Yes.
Awesome. So Pam has been working in editing for over 40 years. I thought you told me you were 21. So having started in advertising, yeah, moving on to live action television, and eventually into animation at Disney Feature, working on The Emperor's New Groove, love that movie, Mulan 2, Open Season at Sony, Despicable Me at Illumination, The Star at Sony, Abominable at DreamWorks, and then most recently, The Monkey King at Netflix, coming out in 2023. I saw an announcement about that. Very, very well done. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's why I can actually talk about it now, because otherwise it'd be like, I'm working on something I can't talk about.
Exactly. Welcome, Pam. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Lisa Silver. We have Lisa. Hey.
Yay.
Lisa has been working in film editing for 32 years, starting out in live action features. That's a trend I'm seeing now. The last 24 have all been in animation. Lisa owned her storytelling and story development skills while editing shorts and feature films at Disney Animation, having worked on The Emperor's New Groove as well, Mulan 2, Cinderella 3, Winnie the Pooh, various Tinkerbell projects, and Paperman. I love Paperman. Yay. Patrick Osborne, our friend.
Yes.
Lisa's also edited films for Netflix, DreamWorks, and Hasbro. And most recently, she was the supervising editor for the upcoming My Little Pony feature. That's
nice.
Sorry, go ahead.
Whole new breed of ponies.
Whole new breed of ponies. And some newly announced Peanuts specials through Wild Brain. Hey,
awesome.
Is that with Clay?
Yes.
Yes.
Nice, nice, nice. Clay and Pascal?
Yes.
Nice, nice, nice. Can't wait for
Very
that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yes, that's super cool. That's super cool. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Hey.
Yay.
And so we also have Joi-Noelle Worley. Joy is an editor for both live action and animation.
Nice.
She is currently working at Atomic Cartoons as an assistant editor and is also freelancing for Greyscale Animation for their upcoming fantasy film, Orin's Way. When's that come out?
Well, we're quoting next year, but we're gonna see how animation goes.
Okay, cool.
But on the trailer, it says next year. So.
All right. Yeah, I can't wait for that. And previously, Joy worked on Trollstopia for DreamWorks TV, Greyscale Animation short Odd Dog. Is that? I'll ask you about that later. And as a web series editor for various clients, when not editing, Joy is working on her own animated series, Lionheart, which I thought was super rad.
Yeah. Wow.
And debating about how great deep dish Chicago-style pizza is.
Yeah.
You're in enemy territory. You're in LA. Well, what does LA know about pizza?
I know. I wasn't always this way. It happened when I came to LA. I was like, wait, the pizza's like really different here, and I like to go off that. But
we've got a good deep dish now.
Yes, there's like one Gino's East, I think, in like North Hollywood. So yeah, that was nice.
So
that was nice.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's from New Jersey, and we always debate like deep dishes and pizza. So that's why I had to put that in there as like a jab.
You know what? For anyone who knows me, they know I love pizza, and that's my electric chair food. But Jesse, we also have Jesse Averna. Averna?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. He is a 5-time Emmy-winning editor. Ooh. Hello. Yo. Props. Mad props. His career has spanned everything from TV to feature, live action to animation. Jesse's a chameleon, having worked on everything from Breaking Bad, which is pretty cool, to Sesame Street, to Frozen 2, to Ralph Breaks the Internet, and most recently, Us Again, the short film on Disney+. Yeah. So welcome, Jesse.
Thank you.
That's
I have to say,
pretty-
I didn't actually work on Breaking Bad. I worked on I cut like online promos for them. So it wasn't, no. I can't take any
Are
credit
you
for
being
that.
humble? No, I'm just kidding.
No, not at all. I did some online stuff for them. I bow down to them. I didn't do anything on that show.
Hey, they would have been lucky to have you, man. But one thing I'm noticing is everyone on the panel has both worked in animation and live action. Is that a common occurrence? That happens? That wasn't a question for anyone in specific, but just kind of like there's something that
I think so, because live action is where a lot of people initially decide they're going to start in.
Yeah.
And then animation sort of becomes like this road not taken by everybody or well adapted for everybody either. Not everybody is cut out to do animation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was always a huge animation fan. Went to all the the Sick and Twisted animation festivals and all that.
Yeah, I remember those.
But I worked in live action and wanted to be an editor, and I thought, I don't want to work in animation because they're not going to draw, a wide shot and a close up and an over the shoulder. They're not going to draw all that for you to cut to. So what are you going to cut? Like, I'm going to be a splicer. I'm just going to splice the pieces together. Like that doesn't make sense. So I never really pursued it until a friend of mine, Gina, who was an assistant editor on Tarzan over at Disney, we were having breakfast together and she was like explaining it all to me. And I was like, what? I didn't even know that. So I think as live action editors, even if they have an interest in animation, don't really probably realize what it is that we end up doing.
Yeah.
So when she told me that, I was like, that is cool. I want to do that. And got me interviews, which ended up getting me Emperor's New Groove, where I met.
I love it. So that's a great segue, Lisa, too. Let's start with you. Like, what drew you into animation and how did you break into the world of editing? Do you want to kick it off? Lisa?
Sure.
Origin story of your superpower.
Story. Well, okay, my super quick origin story. In high school, I thought I wanted to do architecture. And I was taking a drafting class, but I love movies. My mom took us to every Star Wars and Star Trek movie. She pulled us out of school to see, Return of the Jedi. And
she pulled you out of school?
Yeah. So she really got us into film.
You got the coolest mom in the world.
So that really got me into film. But, I thought, I'm going to be an architect. And then, don't even ask me why, but when I was 16 years old and I saw Breakfast Club, there was a shot in Breakfast Club where Emilio Estevez is talking about taping Larry Lester's buns together. I don't know if you remember the scene, but there's a camera move while he's describing this that's panning around the other kids sitting on the floor. And for whatever reason, I just thought that was such a cool way to tell that particular part of the story, and with that camera move and seeing everybody's expressions. And I was like, I want to work in film. And I thought maybe I'll do production design. I'll be a production designer.
How old were you?
I was 16.
Whoa.
And then my senior year in high school, they offered a video class, a video production class. And we did stuff for like the local cable channel. We did a local talk show. This was in Arizona. I grew up in Scottsdale. And I fell in love with the editing. I was doing some projects where I had to edit on big 3/4 inch tapes at the time. I'm really aging myself here.
Yeah.
But I fell in love with the editing. And I said, that's it. I'm going to go into editing. And then moved to California, went to Columbia College, and nobody liked to edit. And I was like, I'll edit your project. I'll edit your project. I'll edit your project.
Cool.
And so, started on film, Moviola. And from there, I was able to meet somebody who also went to Columbia College, who was looking for an apprentice editor.
Got it.
Live action, and I jumped in. And then after that, like I said, I didn't know what animation editing was going to be like, and I wasn't moving up very fast, actually, in live action either. It was an apprentice first, and then an assistant, and a first assistant, but it would have been a long time and a big jump for me to get to lead editor, I think, on a live action feature film. So getting into animation, I came in as an assistant, but was able to move up. Actually, Pam and I moved up together. She was the associate editor. I was the first assistant, and then the editor left or got canned. And she and I moved up together.
That's the worst reaction to someone getting canned. I just started laughing. It's the way you phrased it. Yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I never want to go back to live action. I love animation editing. It's so much fun.
Pam, do you wanna like segue off of that, since you guys two both work closely together? It sounds like
Yeah, I mean, I went to college for mass comm, so I always knew I wanted to be in the business somehow, but I didn't quite know what. And then that was in Minnesota. Moved to LA, went to work for an ad agency with the producers of the commercials. So I got to go on all the shoots and do the editing and stuff. And that's where I found what interests me the most. So I got then a job at one of the editorial houses that we use for commercials. And that's how I got in. So I got in knowing absolutely nothing, like not how to sync dailies, not nothing. And it was like a great learning field. But this was way before there was computers and YouTube and all this stuff. So if I didn't know how to do something, I'd just go, okay. And then I'd call somebody up and say, how do I do this?
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any, there was not like you could look it up. There was no looking it up.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
yeah.
There's no Lydia at that point. You know, you couldn't look shit up. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I did commercials for a bunch of years, and then I decided, not losing sleep for 30 seconds was not going to be okay for me. So I decided to go into television and got a job. Worked on, this will be dating myself, Northern Exposure for 5 years. And
remember that show?
Yeah.
Did a bunch of great TV stuff, and then worked on a pilot with Tom Finnan, who was the editor of Lion King. And he was the one that then called me to go to Disney. So he was the one that said, come over here and interview, but if you come over and work here, you'll never go back to live action. So, because a lot of people
more stable.
Well, no, people in the live action world don't always look at animation editors as being real editors. They don't really understand what we do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the interesting way to do it. But a lot of live action editors, if they were to sit down in my chair and try to do what I do, they would be so lost and exhausted and frustrated with it.
Not tired. Yep.
It takes a certain type of person to be able to see animation, like drawings, move way before they move, because it's years before sometimes you see animations. So it's like what we do every day is such a niche, amazing, creative way of working.
Go ahead, ma'am. Sorry.
No, so it was just, you know, every step I had to start over as an assistant again in animation, because you don't know animation. So then you start over again, but the leaps up were then faster. So within a year and a half, I was lead editor on Groove. So it was really a fast move up.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Pam. Joy, do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, I can sort of go back to my origin and where I am now. So I went to Columbia College for live action, but I knew specifically that I wanted to work in both animation. So when I was making my course of study, I specifically took animation and live action courses. But towards the end of my year, I realized editing is the way to sort of help tell my voice, but also help someone else tell their story too. And I couldn't draw. So I was like, I want to get into animation, but I'm not an artist, I'm not an animator. How can I still be a part of that world? So I realized, editing, there's animatic editing, there's post-editing. That's my way to be a part of that world. So that's sort of what drew me in to editing. There's a bit of a creative rush that you get when you're editing anything, because you're sort of helping put the pieces of the puzzle together. So for me, I get that both with anything I edit, live action or animation. I will say having a foundation in live action has helped me transition better. If anyone were to sort of pick up and start editing animation just by itself, you could, but there's something that comes with coming from live action where you understand the technicality of things,
Oh.
understand frame rates and EDLs and AAFs. You get that experience that kind of turns over. So for me, it was great to have that foundation to help carry over. And I definitely agree with what Pam was saying. Like, it is a very specific type of mindset you have to have, because you're looking at panels, you're looking at sound effects, you're looking at like transitions. It's like, you don't have unlimited footage with animation. You have to make sure you mark that. So it's like, it's very different. Yeah, so I agree with what everyone else has said.
No, you know what's so funny? I love that, because, like, you know, for anyone, you know, in the chat, attendees that are making their own short film, whether it's in school or you're just kind of, Joy, you're making your own short film now, just kind of like, there's a rush when you're in the editing. You could still say editing bay. I don't know. I heard that like in a making of once, but like, when you're cutting the shots together, you're right. I mean, just there's a real rush of just kind of like, and then you play it back for your team, and you're just like, all right, watch this.
It's
and
the best
you know,
feeling in the
like,
world when people like are silent, but it's like the good kind of silence.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. Thank you, Joy, for sharing that. Jesse,
I think,
last but not least, Jesse, who worked on Breaking Bad only in the promos.
yes, did not work on that show.
I'm ribbing
wish
you,
I
man.
did.
Just
No.
ribbing you. Just ribbing you. That's awesome, though.
One of the neat things about that experience, though, just to say it, I was in New York City. I was going to school at the School of Visual Arts, but I grew up in Albuquerque. So one of the first jobs I had in New York was all this footage from my hometown. I was like, oh, that's down the street from. So it was really cool to see.
Wow. Wild. Yeah.
But I was one of those situations where, like, me and my friends in high school, we would film stuff and try to make each other laugh. And then I'd spend the whole weekend, you know, staying up overnight, cutting it all together. And then we'd be able to show everybody the next week. So we were always like trying to do music videos or silly skits, just things to entertain ourselves. Yeah. And editing was always the place where I felt like the film was really being made. Like, that's where it became something and not just footage. So I felt a lot of creativity in there. And then I kept getting editorial work, and because of that, I kept dropping out of school. so I went
like high school.
No, in college.
Oh, okay.
But so I actually went back to college, knowing just how important having that degree was, and making sure not to limit myself in terms of opportunity. But what drew me from live action to animation is it's a different sort of puzzle. So live action, you have all of your footage and you're assembling it the best way possible to tell the best story possible. And that's its own puzzle to figure out, you know, when we should be where and who we should be focusing on, how the pacing should be, etc. And that's wonderful. And then animation works the opposite. So you're setting a blueprint for them to then go shoot. So the possibilities just became literally endless. Like, not only was I deciding what shots to use, but how someone should say something, how the pacing of a joke should work, individual beats, when and where, you know, helping when and where the camera should be before we shoot it, and on, creating that blueprint, not just for the scene, but also for performance and for cinematography, and really being the right hand of storyboard artists who are wizards, you know, but seeing what they've created, seeing it through and making it sing, but then also taking that responsibility of, you know, you being the first one to really see it as an audience. The editor's kind of the first audience to see how something's working. And so then, you know, deciding, is this working? Is it clear? Does it make sense? Is it funny? And then, you know, start to make an alt version of what, you know, imprinting your own voice into it, of what if we did this, or do we really need that? And, you know, creating something, a third thing that no one ever expected. It's a rush, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, definitely. I think the one thing I want to really know about too, because everyone's worked in live action and animation, does anybody on the panel have any thoughts immediately on like the clear differences between live action and animation that you're like, oh, this is the thing I want to talk about. But I'm curious too. So like, what are the clearest differences between live action, editing for live action and animation? And do you want to get that? Yeah, Pam's got it.
Well, it's like Jesse said, live action is square peg round hole. You get this finite amount of footage and you're trying to turn it into the story that everybody wants to show. But
Sure.
in animation, you're making the box. There's no world, there's nothing. You come in and you sit down that first day, you have nothing. You have no world, you have no sound, you have no idea what is going to be happening. So as a animation editor, you're putting together the first breath of this movie. You're putting in the sound effects that help set the world. You're putting in the music that helps have the emotion to it. You're cutting the dialogue at the pace that works. Everything is up to you to build. It's not like the actors are never in the room together, rarely. So you've got all these different actors and you're cutting it together and you're making it sound like they're talking to each other. I mean,
I didn't think about that.
As an editor, you're building it from the ground up. I mean, there's nothing that's done until you start working. So to me, that's just like, it's a big commitment to something because it's up to you to actually build it. So it's really, that's what makes it so much fun, the collaboration and the building of this world.
Yeah, I tell people that we aren't post-production as animation editors, we are production. Because we're building the story along with the team, where there might be a script to start out with, there might not be a script to start out with, but the script constantly is changing. You'll put the movie up like 4 or 5 times or more sometimes, and the script will change so often. Like, I don't know, Pam and I will joke sometimes, we're like, remember there used to be a pickle festival in Emperor? Remember that? You know, but that got cut out. But so I feel like another difference between the live action and
the pickle festival. Sorry, go ahead.
Animation editing. Yeah, in live action, you're married to the actors and what they do. Right. And so if like, I'm just looking like my hair's in front here, but in another shot, the actress's hair might be back here, and then you're trying to cut and you want to go into a close up, but the hair is different. I don't know. Then you're kind of you have to technically be creative in a way to work around certain things to make it match in live action. Whereas in animation, you don't have any of that. I can even take like, if the actor swallowed a word at the end, you know, or a syllable at the end of a word in a sentence, I can go to another take of theirs and pull just like the R off the end, stick it on to make sure that we can hear it properly. And you can manipulate, you know, you can cut between 2 different reads. You can, when you're rearranging stuff, like I call it kludging. Probably the queen of kludge, because sometimes things weren't working and I'd say, you know what, just let me take a pass at it and see what I can do. And I'd be like, okay, we had this happen in the other screening. Let me go back to that cut. Let me see what happened. If I take those 6 panels and I stick them in here and I rearrange it this way, and you know what, let me go record a line of dialogue. I have a microphone, you know, and I just do a line of dialogue real quick and I'll have my assistant put it in the machine, and then, you know, I can cut it in there just to start laying it out and see if it works, laying the groundwork for it. And then when I'm happy with that idea that I had in my head, then I call the director back in and I say, okay, we'll need a few panels to make this work and we'll have to record the actor, but this is sort of, what do you think? Can this work better? And then they're like, I see what you're going for there. Like, yeah, okay. You know, and on top of that, we could do this. And then that spins them. So you really feel like you're a part of storytelling. So that when you get on the script at the end, like, oh, that was my idea, or I came up with that line of dialogue, or, you know, which you don't get, I don't think, as much in live action at all.
So does that mean you guys have to work very closely with the storyboard artists and get to know their skills and aesthetic and that kind of stuff? Yeah.
And sometimes even if I need an eyeball to move panel, like them to look to the left, sometimes I can take the same panel, duplicate it, and erase the eyeballs and draw them on in the Avid, looking that way.
Mask it over. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They're all drawings. We can do picture in picture. Like, we can do so much to manipulate to tell the story we're trying to tell when we're putting it together before we even show the director that maybe the storyboard artist didn't think of. We can sometimes manipulate a little bit of it too, which is really nice, which you can't do in live action.
Or speeding up an actor. Oh, and taking out breaths and taking out pauses and all this stuff that you can't do in live action without having it be a jump cut. It's like you can really change a whole performance on a character.
And you're talking about, Pam, in the storyboard phase.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because Story Stays is going for the longest time because they don't want to start spending money on animators or layout until the story's a little bit has to be pretty solid.
Yeah.
When I say editorial and animation is like the hub of the wheel, says the story panels come in, and then it'll go out from us back to layout, which and then the layout comes in, and then once that's approved, it goes back out to animation. Then it comes back to us. So we're the hub of the wheel. So it's like being in dailies for like 2 years.
That sounds terrible. No.
It is.
Joy, did you have anything to add to that? You were chomping at the bit. Yeah.
I would say I definitely agree with everything that Pam and Lisa has said. I would say, at least for those for those who are coming in as like assistants, and you're charged with the build, the one difference I also realize is that between live action and animation is with live action, the footage is sort of driving the edit because you can sort of go off the actor, you can sort of go off that footage, but for animation, you have to sort of have an instinctual sense of rhythm and how things are going to play, because pacing is very important. So you kind of have to have, those metronome things. You have to have an inner sense of like how things are going to play with just the panels and the audio, maybe some sound effects and music. It depends on how much time you have, but you have to have an inner sense of how to drive the edit and the build. Versus with live action, you can kind of see it. You can go off the actor. Oh yeah, I like that close up he did there, but you have to sort of be able to sort of imagine it, like use your imagination, but you have to sort of see it so you can build it. Yeah.
I see. And I'm assuming those rhythms are different from like in Disney or like in TV, it's just kind of like we have like 11s, we have 22s episode, and then there's like feature films, which is like an hour and 30 minutes. Like I can't even imagine.
Just like the rhythm and pacing of your show. Like for from coming from TV, like I worked on Trollstopia, I learned very quickly the pacing of that show. It's like beat, let the joke rest, then go. But with the show I'm on now, I can't talk about it, but I'm learning the difference of the pacing. You still have to have a sense of pacing, but the jokes are landing different. So I think also learning to pick up on those like non-written, this is the formula of our show. So yes, there are different episode counts and time constraints, but also within that, there's a rhythm of the show that I think you have to sort of pick up. That live action is it's more apparent versus like an animatic.
Got it. Wow. Let the joke rest, I think, is like one of those like things that I'm gonna remember. like you do the joke, you do the guy, let it rest. But it's so hard sometimes. I mean, like, because like, like networks want to like go, that kind of stuff. Jesse, what do you think? Do you have any insights on just kind of like live action versus animation, man?
I mean,
so much. You're like,
yeah, where to start?
It's all.
I mean, I honestly really love doing both, and like I said, they're kind of two different ways to approach the same thing. How do we tell this story the best way possible? How do we see and empathize with our characters? So at the end of the day, the goal is the same. It's just approaching it in a different medium. So I think what's neat with animation is that it's going through a a team of people to make it. So there's the, you know, and a lot of that's true with live action too, but you can see people's voices, like the writer, the director, and then also the storyboard artist is adding their look and feel and punch ups. And then editorial is doing the same thing. Like Lisa was saying, you know, it might be better if the character looks here instead of something else. So really it's this team effort, obviously all driven by the director's vision at the end of the day, but everyone is adding a little bit of flavor and a little bit of carving to it. So it becomes something different than it was, I mean, even intended to be when it was written on paper.
I mean, that kind of got me thinking. I'll throw this out to the panel too. This wasn't on the thing. Is there any animated movie sequence where you were just like blown away by the editing on that specific sequence, and why? So, you know, like someone that's trying to learn about like more about editing, of like what impresses you and then why. I mean, I can geek out about animation all day, but people know that. But like for you specifically, actually, let's not even do just just like animation or live action, you know, just kind of like a sequence, hone in on the sequence where you're like, I love that sequence. Well timed, well edited, amazing. And then if you can, let's geek out a little bit.
So this is our fan moment, basically. This is what this is, because I would love to go first.
I mean, kind of, sort of, but also
Okay.
I would love to hear about what you guys think is impressive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. One
So
sequence
Joy, kick it off.
Okay, yes.
Well, everyone thinks about it. Okay, you got one in mind.
Yes. One sequence I still love to this day is the sequence in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The sequence where Miles Morales comes into his powers. I love it because, one, the score, they kept that trumpet, they kept that trumpet.
Yeah.
That trumpet was like a motif throughout the entire film. And then the way that they reused it again in that moment, I was like, chills.
Yes.
And then the way it was edited, you have the voiceovers of his family, his father.
Oh my God.
It was all just building to that moment. Then when he finally jumps off, the way that the edits align with the music and how the comic book splices come on the screen, like I was like, that's whoever. And I love that. I think the animatic editor for that scene, also for that film, he was also the final picture editor. So I'm like, he knew what he was doing from start to finish when he did that. So that was my favorite sequence. Yes, chef's kiss.
Is it the one where he's falling up?
Yeah. Just that whole sequence when the music starts after he leaves his college dorm, that dorm room. You hear the beat kind of start, and it's just he's like, it's just fangirl moment.
Well, that character moment that you guys are talking about, like that voiceover elevates that sequence.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
the voiceover, the score, yeah.
You could have played it straight.
Yeah.
Right.
But once you have the voiceover,
all those layers and the elements, it just the culmination of everything just makes it chill.
Then you're in his head. Yeah.
Then you're in his head. Yeah. Then you're in his head. Yeah. One of the things, Joy, not to geek out too much, but like when I saw the trailer and he jumped off of the building and the glass shattered behind him. Yeah, and like someone said,
that shows that he was still afraid, because it's like the whole thing with Spider-Man is he sticks when he's afraid. So he was still afraid, and so the fact that he did it afraid. So
that's exactly what I was just gonna say. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
I've seen the same clip you have. I read the same review. So.
Oh man, yeah. Woo. Yeah, that's good. Anyone else want to geek out about like sequences? Just kind of like well edited sequences. It could be live action, like we say, or something that is kind of your North Star, you know, sometimes. Pam, do you have one of those kind of like sequences editing wise where you're like, yes,
That's just funny. I'm such a like a movie fan that I just get lost in the film. I can't think. I'm sitting here like sweating. I'm like, oh, I can't think of one.
No. Take your time.
Get so lost in it that, and honestly, like if you notice the the editing, then it's
not
probably
good.
not good.
Oh,
Right?
Yes.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I feel like I don't go in like as an editor, like, oh, let's see how the editing is on this film.
No,
You know,
me
I don't feel
neither.
like anything that just
true.
jumps at it. But certainly movies that have like big action things, and Spider-Verse was a really good example because it was so different than anything we've seen in recent years.
Mhm.
But a lot of that you don't know also like how much that was the director's vision. You know, I used to teach a editing class. A friend of mine taught an editing class for Emerson College, and he would bring his students to me for one of the nights that he taught to just tell them about animation editing. And it was usually around the time of the Oscars or whatever, and they would say, oh, so who do you like for, you know, the Oscar this year? And I said, you know what, if I didn't see all the dailies that editor had to work with and then see what the outcome was, can't really tell you, because a lot of it the director could have even had it storyboarded out, you know, beforehand. And so he shot 2 storyboards and did it sort of animation style in a way. So that editor may not have had as much, you know, hard work to do. Whereas a first-time director may not have shot everything the editor needed, and the editor really had to scramble to get the story together. And then that's good editing, you know? So it's,
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like, if you notice the editing, you didn't do your job.
Right.
I totally get that. I feel that same way on every aspect of animation of like, if you notice animation or if you notice design, you notice it and it sticks out, then, I mean, like, you know, we could have been doing a better job of having it.
I think there's also a difference in, at least, yes, if it's not good, it's not good. But if it's like, I intentionally notice the editing, I notice things. So because I think us in the industry, at least I like to look at things that are well done. So I'll notice it because I'm looking for it, not because it's not executed well. Just I know we're saying if you notice it, it's bad. But I also think that, at least for me, I like to intentionally spot things out. Yeah. It's like all of us on this panel, like anyone in the attendee crowd, like if you've ever dated like someone in animation, it's the worst to watch movies with. Like whether it's like a design or story or editing, we're gonna be like, I'm not really sure about that design or story moment or like animation moment, and you're like, oh God, can you just watch the movie? And we're like, no, I cannot. Let me pontificate on what I think is wrong with this movie. Anyway, and you also learn by looking at good things too. So
it's also funny, like how much in an edit session, like we'll look over. Like I remember having a meeting when I was on Cinderella 3, and the director did not like the way the eyebrow looked. Like we talked about the eyebrow for 30 minutes. Like, oh my God.
I'm laughing because I've been in these meetings.
Yeah, exactly. And then like that weekend, I went to a kid's birthday party at my friend's house. And at the time was when the Tinkerbell movie came out, and I was working at Disney Toon on Cinderella 3, and we just had this eyebrow conversation. And he goes to put Tinkerbell up on the TV, and he works in the industry, but the aspect ratio was wrong. And so everything like squished like this. And I was like, David, you work in the industry. What is with this aspect ratio? Do you know how long we sit and talk about things like an eyebrow? And you're showing this with all the characters squished? No, unacceptable.
Yo, I love this real talk industry talk. This is what we talk about, guys. Like, you know, if there's like lunches and that kind of stuff, this is what animation industry people talk about. Love it. That's great.
I have two.
Jesse, go ahead.
Couple to call out, and they might be a little obvious, but the beginning of WALL-E, I think, is incredible because it's storytelling without dialogue, and emotional without faces. I mean, it's just it's masterful. In the beginning of Up, just because you're telling an entire heart-wrenching feeling story, in such a short time. And then for TV, right away, my brain goes to things like Rick and Morty, because I think you can see the amount of work and probably iteration that's done in a show like that I think is just, it's brilliant on a lot of different levels.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, Jesse, I'm very curious now. So, like, I watched Rick and Morty, like, an episode or two, but, like, what about it, you know, that editing?
I think it's the show's trying to work on lots of different levels. Like, it's like a really intellectual and well-crafted storytelling that usually is dealing with some kind of deep sci-fi complication, but then on the other side it's also, you know, doing more silly lowbrow humor as well, and being able to mix the two and pack so much into it. I mean, it's each episode feels like afterwards you're exhausted. It's like, okay, a lot happened. Yeah. So I think it's a lot to juggle and a lot to take for granted with that kind of format. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about the Up thing really quick though? I mean, just the greatest crafted. I mean, like, Pixar's done a lot of amazing stuff, but like that sequence.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, what is it about those kind of sequences that sticks with you? Do you guys think? You know, everyone remembers Up, and everyone loves that 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's the emotion.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the difference for me of working. Like, I haven't really worked in TV other than, like, right now I've been doing these Peanuts specials, which are 36 minutes long, but that's the closest I've gotten to actual sort of TV type stuff. But we're doing it as a more feature kind of thing. But we're also looking at that, trying to get emotion out of the characters so that you feel something. So it's a little bit like Joy was saying about having a joke and then sitting with it before you move on. It's the same with the emotion, like letting it, you know, sink in a little bit. At the same time, you've also got the production pushing back, like, we need to make this shorter. We need to make this shorter.
Right.
So, you know, they always want everything so short in animation. But you're like, but we got to let this moment rest.
Gotta let it breathe.
Yeah.
We're going to feel the emotion of the character, a drawn character.
And it's gutsy for them to have that long without dialogue and just music. I mean, not every studio has the stomach for putting something like that together and putting it out there. I mean, that's the one thing about Pixar that I find is that they're willing to take those risks that some studios are not willing to do. I mean, to sit with that for that long and have people, and okay, people are going to love this. I mean, not every studio would do that.
Yeah.
Jesse, what do you think?
No, I completely agree. I was just I was getting wrapped up in what Lisa was saying just about always looking for the emotion. And I was thinking, this is kind of a side tangent, but when you're working this long and intimately with the material, you really do start to have almost a personal affection for these characters, and you want their story to be told the right way, and you want to make sure that people get what they're feeling, and it really does become a little personal.
It has to, otherwise you can't do your job. I don't think.
Yeah.
Wow. They gave me good, like, I started thinking about if you guys have seen Soul, and you know that part of the third act where he's playing the piano and he lays out all of the, like, the bits on his piano. That, I mean, they take so much time to just linger, and it's not, I mean, like, I think that's what it was about that sequence, is like, it doesn't feel like an animated film. It feels like live action film, where they're lingering on, like, important aspects of it, and it just longest shots you talked about, of just kind of lingering on something, like, that's not something you're used to seeing in animation. Right? I mean, you guys know what shot I'm talking about? It's like that piano. Ooh.
Yeah, first of all, they probably broke that up into 4 shots, right? Because they have to go like, I'm not animated. But that's exactly, I think, what we're talking about, is just feeling it in that moment and letting it breathe like that.
And I think at the end of the day, it's still about telling the best story. So like you were saying, just having the bravery to hold that shot in service of the story. That's usually that call will come from like the editor or the director talking, but someone will sort of fight for that moment, and letting it breathe, it like helps the overall like story be told, which really helps.
That's interesting that you said. Go ahead, Jesse. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm thinking of TV again. There's something really gratifying about having limitations too, where then you have to figure out a creative alternative. Like, okay, we can't do this, so is there a way we can? It becomes kind of a brain twister to still feel what you're saying with built-in restraints. I don't know. It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I find, I equate what you're saying, Jesse, to like being good in math. Like, I was really good in math, but I would get really frustrated if I couldn't figure out like an algebra problem.
No.
So editing a lot feels like that to me. Like sometimes I can't figure out how to get these boards to work in the right rhythm where I feel like it's really working, and I get frustrated. And so it was like my old math days. Like I get frustrated and I'm like, all right, I gotta walk away. Get a snack, go to the bathroom, whatever, come back. Okay, let me look at this again. Oh, and then you go like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh, if I move this over here, and I add that sound effect, and maybe if I do a dissolve, and suddenly it kind of becomes clear like how you can figure it out. But you do get to learn that, like, I gotta make this work, and it's not working.
Right.
Walk away.
Lisa, what you described, you are a screenwriter. Essentially, you're a screenwriter. Like
screenwriter. Well, yeah, right. Yeah. In some ways, we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, there's the words on the page, but there's how you make the visuals like flow together. And so essentially you are a writer, in a lot of ways. Everyone on this panel, writers in a lot of ways.
Well, I think we're writers. I think we're also sometimes cinematographers.
Yes. Yep.
There's an example when I was on Winnie the Pooh. I remember going to a layout meeting, which is, after we put the storyboards together and it goes over to layout, that's where they decide sort of how the shots go. And they might stick to what the storyboard artist drew as this is one shot, then we cut to that shot, then we cut to that shot. But sometimes to simplify or make things more cost effective, they'll combine two of those shots into one, that kind of thing. So I remember on Winnie the Pooh, there was our head of layout, Razul, who was awesome.
Yep.
He wanted to cut to a single instead of this two shot during a piece of dialogue. And I said, can we not actually do that? Because I think it's important that we see the other character's expression change on that piece of dialogue. So I don't think we should go to a single of, I think it was like Eeyore and Tigger. And I was like, I don't think we should go to a single of Eeyore because we want to see Tigger's expression when Eeyore says that. So we need to leave Tigger on the in the shot as well. And then everyone's like, oh, okay, yeah, actually I see why. Sometimes we're also sort of in light of the storytelling, also a cinematographer in a way.
And there's one of those things, Lisa, too, you don't necessarily know until you get it into the editing bay, right?
Oh no. Yeah, you don't.
Yeah. So no one might have seen that, but you saw it. Right. And you're like, yeah.
So still in service of our story and service of our characters and their emotions and stuff.
Right. That's a lot of pressure, actually.
Oh, it is.
It's a lot of pressure. That's all I'm thinking is just kind of like how much pressure it's like coming in, dealing with the board artists, not dealing with them. We love you, board artists. Like working with the director, board artist, everything. I mean, because you're the last kind of like leg of the race.
Yeah, we are.
And the first
last day.
We're first on, last off.
First on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfectly put. Yeah.
I think there's kind of this duality that editors have to have, where you have to care deeply about the scene and making it work. But then also on the other side of the coin, be willing to be like, okay, we tried it, and let go of your idea because it's a collaboration.
Yeah.
So I think if you can walk that tightrope, then you can make it. in editing. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't take it too seriously when you're all excited about your cut and then you show it to the director and they're like,
No,
what you're doing, but you know what? I'd rather go back. Can you just put it back? And then you're like,
yeah.
Okay, I didn't try. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's a team sport.
Yeah, and we're the ones that have to have the less egos of anybody on the team, I would say, because the director's always got to keep the director up. We're trying to get the director's vision, but at the end of the day, we could do what we think, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. So we got to be okay with that. And it's just, we're in service of the story. So
Right.
I think once, like Pam said, if you just put the story first, all ego just like
goes away.
goes out the door.
Yeah.
And like Lisa said, you got to be willing to kill the baby sometimes to get it to time. It's like, oh no, we don't want to lose that. Oh, but you know, you got to talk your director into it too sometimes. You know, you got to like talk everybody into like, okay, what's the cleanest way to tell this story?
Yeah.
And so you're all of a sudden trying to pull stuff out.
Yeah.
What's funny too is you'll get rid of those moments that you really love sometimes, and you're like, okay, yeah, and now it flows better.
Right.
It works.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to surrender to the idea. Yeah, before you can see that it was actually a really good idea.
Yeah. And don't you guys think that's in every aspect of the animation industry? I'm like, I mean, like, whether it's story, animation, or design, or editing, or direct, and like, you put your heart out there and you do your best. Like, you know, you have to be inspired. You know, you come in and you're like, yes, I'm gonna like, you know, I'm gonna like bring this to the sequence or this design, and you believe in it, and then also like if it gets like nixed, you're like, you have to be okay with it. It's weird.
Yeah.
It messes with your
It really does. You spend hours putting together hundreds of panels and music.
Oh jeez.
And then they like, yeah, we're cutting this. And you're like, and then that poor storyboard artist drew all those.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel that so much.
I've done that on whole versions of movies where like we put the whole movie up and we have this like 80-minute movie, and then they go, now we're changing it, and they throw the whole movie out. We did that on Emperor's New Groove, where we were like way up when it was Kingdom of the Sun, and that was like start over, you know. And it's like you just got to be okay with change.
You got to be okay with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got to be okay with it. You can go home, dance a little bit, like, you know, and just kind of be okay with it. Yeah.
But sometimes it's cathartic because it's like, yeah, that wasn't working. Let's get rid of that. You know, it's like sometimes you can see the writing on the wall, and if somebody says, yeah, we're just going to throw that all out, and you go,
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. You know.
Yeah.
Pickle festival? Nah.
Pickle festival's got to go. It's got to go.
One thing I've also learned, at least for those who are coming up as assistants and all that, just because you get notes on something doesn't mean it's bad. It's just you got to a place where we can elevate it now. And that was one thing when I realized, oh, it's okay. The notes were just to make it better. It's not because I did a bad job. And once I sort of understand that, I was like, oh, okay, I'm fine with notes. Notes are cool, you know?
Well, I think that's the art of
that. Yeah. Jesse, sorry.
I was just saying, I think that's the art of this whole industry. Live action as well is not taking it personal.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
It's hard sometimes, but yeah.
Totally, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's a constant lesson, but it's the notes don't reflect on you. It's about the story. It's about
that's part of the collaboration.
Poker face is a good thing to have.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that people are only seeing the back of my head. Sometimes I'm like, you know, like I feel come up behind you and you're like,
Yeah.
If you say so.
Right. Let's try.
Yeah. Listen, I think it's like for every discipline, it's just kind of like the thick skin. And so I know a lot of people that just like, I mean, like for me, I've met a lot of people that just don't, I mean, it's hard for them it was hard for me too, for us too, to take that negative feedback. But like, like if you're going to be in this industry, that's the thing that you kind of have to develop, is just kind of like that thick skin of just kind of like, you know, getting shot down, like propping yourself up, getting shot down, being like, all right, okay, this was a very humbling experience. What can I learn from this experience?
Yeah.
And then how it can come back like tomorrow, you know, it just kind of like, and kind of like bring it again, you know. I felt that in animation all the time. Of just kind of like, and I'm sure all the panelists that felt this way, of just kind of like, you're like, I'm figuring this out now. I think I'm doing pretty good. And then the next day, you're just kind of like shot down. You're like, I don't know anything about my discipline. And then you're like, okay, how do I pick myself up again? You know what I mean? But it's all a part of it. Like rejection is like a part of it, don't you guys?
Yeah, but I find like the funnest part of the editing animation process for me anyway is I don't find the cutting of the panels together as much fun as I used to when I was younger. Now that part feels more tedious to me. And when I get really excited is when the director comes in and we have our hours long edit sessions where we're working together and we are doing sort of that kludging and moving things around and trim that. And how about this idea? What about that idea? Oh yeah, let's try that. And you know, and you're both there working together on it. I find that part to be much more thrilling. And to that point too, I've been very lucky my last few projects to work with awesome directors that are collaborative. That's the other thing. Because some directors look at editors just as a pair of hands. Just you're there to push the buttons and do my bidding. And that sucks. That's horrible. I've been in that situation a couple of times and it's awful. So to be with directors that will collaborate and don't mind hearing if you have an idea, you know, and then, but then you got to walk that fine line too, where you don't keep bringing up too many ideas where they're like, okay, enough.
Right,
you know?
right.
Also, you got to know when to be quiet as well.
It's good to have people who, it's good to have people who value your opinion. Yeah, but you got to be careful. But you got to pick your moments, pick your battles.
I'm gonna turn it over to the attendee Q&A, if you guys don't mind. If you guys have hard outs, then totally fine. But we're gonna start out with Luciana Aguilar. Hello. Hi, Luciana. Do you have a question for the panel?
Turn your mic on.
Has to unmute.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry, my mic was off.
Oh no. No problem.
My question was, well, I'm going to be a freshman in college, and I'm going to be studying BFA in studio art. I was wondering if that would be like a good degree that would help me get into this animation industry in the future.
I would say, yeah, definitely. I mean, all the, not in animation, in editing, but the other aspects of animation, if you wanted to get into design or biz dev, you know, production design, art direction, all of that, absolutely. Like a lot of those people are all art degree majors, like fine art degree majors for sure.
Oh, okay. Neat. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Let's see. So we have Chiniera. Chiniera, are you there? Hello. Hi. Thank you for putting together the panel. Do you want to ask your question, Chiniera? If you are there.
I'm actually at work, but
okay, cool.
I work at
Do you want to skip it? It's fine. You're at work?
Yeah, I work. It's my day job, but I was just curious, because I'm trying to get into the industry by storyboarding, but I'm also interested in editing, especially animatics. But I have never like used like the programs before. So what would you recommend that I should do? Like, should I like research something, or where should I start?
It's a great question.
Joy's probably best to answer that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you want to get started, first of all, software, you can get like a 30-day trial of like Adobe Premiere Pro, I think. And if you're a student, if you have your student account, you can like get a discount rate if you sign up for it. That's something that you can maybe, if you want to get into editing, get like a free trial for Adobe Premiere Pro. That way you can sort of dabble in it. There's lots of tutorials online. There's lynda.com. But the best way to sort of learn editing is just to sort of do it. And then if you run into technical problems, there's like forums online to look into. There's lots of like editors, resources, forums, Reddit, if you Google it. If you're a storyboard artist, I think it's also in the industry, a storyboard artist, at least for certain studios, they're not making the animatic. But I do think it's good for a storyboard artist to know how things will be edited, because I've had boards come in where I can tell the storyboard artist was thinking about how this was going to be edited. I can tell that they're giving me the enough boards for a cycle, because sometimes if you don't have a cycle, it's going to look weird. So I could tell that, oh, they're thinking about how this is going to be edited. So I think if you're aware of those things on how to make the edit better, it definitely can help a storyboard artist to sort of be aware. The editor will really appreciate if I give them this, you know.
Got it.
A lot of TV storyboard artists use Storyboard Pro,
Yeah.
and they can kind of edit in Storyboard Pro, which as a feature editor, I
Hate that.
but that's what they do. So if you want to learn, I would say, and you want a storyboard and maybe dabble in editing, try Storyboard Pro. But like TV editing kind of is different. Like they have animatic editors that just do the storyboard editing. And then when animation comes back, that goes to a different editor. But feature film, you're the editor. You do the whole thing, beginning to end. You do the storyboards and you deal with the layout and you deal with all the animation coming back and all the sound and everything like that. So
Right.
that way we mostly cut on Avid Media Composer for editing. And I know TV does a lot of Adobe Premiere editing for television shows like at DreamWorks. So those are other programs you could use, and Photoshop. Most feature storyboard artists use Photoshop for their storyboards.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
Oh no, just resources online. You mentioned Lynda. There's Editor Mentor. That's a good one. Sight Sound Story, Manhattan Edit Workshop, Filmmaker U. There's a lot of resources for editors. Most are not animation specific, but just learning how and why an editor does what they do for any medium, I think will help for sure. Even with your drawing, like, okay, they went to a close-up when she's being emotional, so maybe I should, just learning the language of when and why you would cut or not cut.
Huh.
Yeah, Jesse, maybe that's a list you could type up and get
I love that.
Yeah.
Postmortem for this talk.
Yeah. And if you're on Twitter, if you follow the hashtag post chat, you can find a lot of stuff there where ask a question, and it's a good community of people that will throw stuff up for you. Editors, editorial post-production, there's some of the nicest people.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for help or ideas or resources, just asking can usually give you some result. Yeah.
We are really nice. It's just we're always secluded and in our edit bays, so it's like no one comes to see us, but we're pretty nice.
Isn't it true? Is it true that animation versus live action people? Animation people are like 5 times nicer than live action people. I think 5 times, right? That's what the
I would go 10.
research shows. Okay. I've always found that. Thank you so much, Chiniera. And thank you for putting on this panel. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for answering my question. And we're having a sale at Macy's, so go shop.
Yay.
Ashley Thomas, do you have a question for the panelists?
It's
Can I
funny,
comment on
actually, kind of already.
something you just said?
Oh, good.
Sorry, just to say it really quick. I think in terms of niceness with animation editors, I think this is important to say because animation does take a long time and you're working with people for years. So I think that's part of it is it does take a certain personality and people skills in order to to do that. So
Yeah,
I
you
think
put
that's
them more
part of
out
what you're noticing.
And your family. for
Yes,
sure.
Exactly.
it's our family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But go
Lisa.
on with your question. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Sorry, Ashley.
No, it's fine. Actually, I felt like you guys actually just answered the question I had. I mean,
Oh,
the only thing is that I'm not in college. I'm basically an animator and previs artist. And so
nice.
someone like myself wanting to go into editing or have, curiosity about it, I was going to ask, like, what kind of books would you guys recommend? Since I'm not fresh out of college or any of that, like, I've been in it for a little while now. So I'm like, what would you recommend for someone like myself or anybody who's like thinking of switching it up?
Probably what Jesse said. There aren't any animation editing books that I know of.
No, I can't think of any either. No.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think
That's what I
there's,
was
like,
thinking, because
the
even everything you
general-
guys said, I was like, oh, that's
There's like
okay.
general
Story.
editing books, like the art of the cut. There's like general editing stuff,
Yeah,
but there's
yeah.
no like animation editing. We're still kind of niche.
We're a niche
I mean, but
group.
you should know story, like knowing story, like what's that one? Was it not Skin the Cat? What is
Save the cat.
Save the cat.
Yeah.
The cat.
We skid them sometimes.
Yeah. Save the cat. That's a good one. Like just to know story, because it comes up. You're in those conversations so much about how it can make the story work that it's good to know like the basic of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
But
Really,
also,
as you
if
guys
I-
were saying everything, it was just like you guys were just answering the question.
Yay. Good.
But
Good.
if I could also recommend, like, if you just want to sort of see examples in practice, like, look at companies and studios' YouTube channels, look at like behind the scenes stuff, because sometimes they'll show you like the making of, and you'll kind of see how things go. I know Nickelodeon posts animatics of like Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on their YouTube page. Those animatics are like really robust, but
They're amazing.
they're great. But I'm like, look at all those panels.
I'm in awe.
Go.
Yeah.
So like, it's also really good to just watch animatics, and you can sort of deconstruct, because a lot of times they keep the shipping labels on them, and you can see how things are labeled, and that's really good for someone coming up to like know. So look for things that are already sort of online to sort of watch too. That's also a really good resource.
Yeah, I think in editing and as an assistant, especially coming out through being an assistant, you have to be a very organized person. Like everything has to be very organized in the system. So now as an editor, having a really good assistant that's very organized is
It's key.
beyond gold. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
I don't know if it's still, if it is online or not, but I know Edit Fest, there was a panel years ago, it might be 2014 or 2015. It was with Pixar assistant editors, and they were describing their process, and it just blew my mind. So if you can find that, it's incredible. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. And then thank you, Ashley. And then we'll close out our panel today with Leanne's question. Leanne, what up? Hello, are you there? Hi, Leanne. If she's not there,
oh wait, she's coming.
Oh, there you go. Hi, Leanne.
Hi.
Do you have a question for the panel? And then go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, like, what are the qualities like an editor should have? What kind of qualities and skills and stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Well, I think what we just said about being organized, also like, having that thick skin and being okay with, your ideas getting shot down. Definitely working with others, like Jesse was saying, we're in a very small space for a very long time, and support each other, have a good sense of humor about things, for sure.
Yeah, you need to be a good people person. It's fun. It's interesting because editors as a whole are kind of more nerdy, secluded people that like working by themselves in their little dark rooms. So we've been told. But but in animation, it's such a collaborative thing, and you have to be able to walk the politics line of saying, you know, getting across what you want to say, but without hurting people's feelings sometimes, even with board artists or other animators and things. So yeah, it's having good people skills and organizational skills, big time, and a good work ethic, because the hours are long, and in animation, it goes on for years. So your stamina is important, and you know, that's hard sometimes.
Yeah. Joey, what do you think?
I definitely would agree. Organization.
Okay.
You know, like I'm an assistant now, but even like when I do my own projects on the side, I still have like a set workflow of organization that I use. Because if you're not organized, and if you get a note that's like, oh, can we revert back to the sequence it was before, and if you like deleted it or don't have a redundancy system in place or backups, like you have to recreate that. So it's like having a workflow that if you're doing your personal stuff, like even if you're doing your personal work, institute a workflow for yourself. That way, when you are sort of integrated into the studio system, adhering to their workflow and pipeline won't seem so strange. You'll just have to sort of like, oh yeah, it's just like this, you know. So organization is key, but also understanding and asking questions why things are the way that they are, because then if you know why, you'll know how it's going to help the pipeline. That's one thing I definitely learned, is ask questions, because you'll understand things a whole lot better, especially if you're new to coming in. Like, ask questions. No one's going to be mad at you for trying to do a good job, you know. And a lot of people are afraid to ask questions because they're afraid to seem like, oh, I don't want to seem like I don't know. But you don't know, and if you don't know, you're going to make a mistake. So it's better to just ask, get the answer, do it right, and people will thank you for it. So don't be afraid to ask questions, and be organized, and be an active communicator. Don't just assume people know what you're doing. Don't just assume that they know you're working on the sequence. Communicate with your editor, your production people. Like, no one's going to be mad at you for like being open and honest.
Yeah,
for sure.
I hope you guys wrote that one down, because that's gold. I mean, absolute gold. It's so much better to ask a question than to pretend like you know, and then possibly, you know, get it wrong. Just we're all a team, and there's not a problem until it leaves editorial, you know. So let's be honest about it. Let's build each other up.
Even across the city, like I've had friends that went on to work on something at Paramount when I was at Hasbro, and they called me like, how did we do this? Like, and I'm like, well, let me have my assistant talk to you. Like, let's share information, because it only helps, because we're all going to probably work together again, which is another thing I would tell those edit students that came by, is just be nice to everybody, even if they get under your skin, because you do not know that person will end up being able to hire you 5 years down the road, because it's happened to me. You know, like that person suddenly has moved up the ladder to like head post-production or something, and then you're like, oh, I should have been nicer to them. And they drove me crazy. But so definitely, you know, just be nice to everybody. And it's who you know, and really not what you know, as far as resume.
Right, exactly.
Someone say something about a reel. I have never been asked for a reel ever.
Nope.
Yeah. So it's really about who you know. And we need assistants. We need animation.
Big time.
Good ones. So if you want to get into animation editing, now is the time, because we need some really good animation assistants that, you know, want to learn and want to move up the ladder. So
yeah, and another.
Froze.
Oh no.
Or maybe this is just like her thinking about like what she's gonna say. Jesse, do you wanna close it out?
I want to make sure and tell people who are watching that all these people that you're possibly looking up to or wanting to be in the position they're in, they're just people, just like you. And there's not some magic. Of course, there's a certain amount of talent, but you have talent as well. And really the key is to, just to try and don't give up. Look for friends, make connections, and you can do it. There's not, there shouldn't be some gated community. So I would just say believe in yourself, and a resource like Rise Up Animation, like take advantage of it, because you can meet with people like us and chat about things, and not just get advice in that moment, but now you've made a connection. So I would say if you have a heart for it and you want to do it, try it, you know, and if it doesn't work right away, that's just the name of the game. You fail and you pick yourself up, and you fail and you pick yourself up. And we desperately need more diverse voices and more female editors. That's for sure. I know our panel is kind of deceiving, but there's a lack of women in that chair, and that's it's ridiculous. So I don't know. I want to say that it's hard, and it's you earn your position. It's nothing's handed to you, but if you're a person who, even on top of that, might have to deal with unconscious bias because of your color of your skin or your sexual preference or your gender, like that's just some bullshit. So please, like, find people who want to support you and help you and lift you up. I don't know, it's like Lisa or Pam said, we're all a big family, and even if we're at different studios, we help each other, we know each other, we care about each other. And that's why Rise Up Animation means so much to me, because a lot of those things I mentioned I haven't had to deal with, and it's still really hard. So I don't know, they become part of the family is what I'm saying. Like, don't worry about competing with someone else. We're all there's work, we're all helping each other, we're all moving up together, and we should be encouraging each other and championing each other, being proud of each other and supporting each other. So I didn't mean to go on a long rant, but this organization,
well said.
This organization is so important, and thanks for being here.
If I could piggyback off of something that Joshi was saying, like, it's gonna be hard, like, but don't be afraid of the hustle. Like, if you want it, you have to work for it. But when you get it, it's like, yes, I made it. I got that first gig. I got it. So find ways to sort of develop your portfolio, to still work at it. Especially I found, like, took me 5 years to get my first, like, animation and editing job. So it's going to take time, but don't let that discourage you. Use that time to really hone your craft. It might be faster for some people, but for me, it took like five years. But I love that time I took, because I was able to develop my skills and my voice. So don't be afraid if it takes time. Just keep hustling. Don't get discouraged. If you just all those, like, encouraging words.
You need to teach a class, by the way. You're so good.
Also, if you, like, my last assistant, who was excellent, he came up through advertising, and he learned a lot. Like, he's an avid genius, basically, and tech genius, which is great, because now that I've gotten out of the tech side and I'm in the edit chair, like, I don't want to think about the tech stuff so much. So it's great to have a tech assistant that's really on top of it. And at the same time, he doesn't want to be an assistant for life. So I always feel like I try and mentor my associate and my assistant, and I let them cut, and then I give them notes, and here, try this, move that, and help them learn, because they're going to want to move up the ladder too. So hopefully you can find somebody, an editor that, you know, you could work with, that is also willing to mentor you. But him starting in advertising, I feel like, was a huge leg up. And when I interviewed him, he didn't have any animation experience. There was an animation editor's Facebook page. He knew he wanted to be in animation. And so I had asked on there, like, hey, I'm looking for an assistant. And he responded, and he was one of the people I interviewed. And even though he didn't have animation experience, like, I knew that he was wanting to work in animation, which I was like, okay, it's easy enough to tell you how to, like, organize how I work. And he had the skills from doing the commercial stuff, the advertising. And that gave him also enough hours to join the union right away. Because that's the other thing. Most of us are working union. So it's very hard, unless you've already got some non-union hours working, to be able to jump onto a union job. You already have to have 100 hours, I think it is, non-union work. So
so what you're saying is, like, when you get that position, pay it forward.
Pay it forward. Really. Which is also great. Why Rise Up is just great for, you know, mentorship and all of that as well. So I try to emulate that in my cutting room.
For for sure.
And I think in general, see it as, like I said, not competing. It's if you're helping other people and encouraging them, it's going to come back around, and that's the environment we should have all around. So
I love that. Well, thank you, everyone. Jesse, Lisa, Joy, Pam.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, you guys are such inspiring people. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, great to chat with you guys.
And great questions. And sorry we couldn't get to everybody's questions. We had a lot down here, but
yeah, sign up for sessions.
Sign up for sessions, and hopefully, you can ask your questions, to these luminaries in person through Zoom. But
find us on LinkedIn. Ask us on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, everything else. There's 2 Pams right now.
Oh, I'm shutting my computer decided it was going to go crazy.
Oh no.
But thank you, everybody. I hope everyone's safe. I hope everyone's vaccinated, and we hope to run into you. We will run into you guys in the industry very soon. And we can't wait to work with you all. So, Panelists, everybody, thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you so much for doing this. You're very inspiring. Your time and effort is super appreciated. So, thank you, everybody. And so,
thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.